Google Meet. While presenting,
I can't see the audience, no?
the audience.
The audience, okay. So I had to say
Yeah,
stop
yeah,
presenting and
that's
then
the problem with Google Meet.
True. Okay. Hello, good morning,
Zoom have done
Anusha.
better in
I can
this
see
time.
your face at least. So
Good morning, Mr.
yeah,
Parthasarthy.
good morning. And so what do you do, Anusha? What's your startup?
So I have a health tech startup named Statwish Technology. So we are mainly into helping chronic disease patients comply to their medications and help them for capture their symptoms and signs between the doctor follow-up.
Okay.
So
What diseases?
In a broader sense, it actually covers all chronic diseases. So basically, we have an IoT device which helps them follow up on their medications.
Okay.
So as of now, we are concentrating on CKD mainly.
Okay, so it's a monitoring device.
Yes. So basically, it's a device which you plug into your medicine strip, and it tracks your medication consumption and keeps you updated.
Sure. And good morning, Ashutosh.
Good morning, sir. Good morning.
Are you a student here?
No, well, I'm not, but my brother is in first year, who is also in the founding team.
Because you look like a student, you look very young.
Okay.
So you're working somewhere? Are you in Mandi or you're in some other place?
Yes, I'm in campus. I'm in IIT Mandi campus right now.
Okay, very nice.
Yes.
I believe you have a wonderful campus.
Yes, we do. Apparently, the hills are beautiful. So is climate.
Overlooking the mountains.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Apparently, us being in the campus gives us an advantage because our target market or the where we intend to do the pilot is college students. So we'll be piloting in IIT Mandi campus.
And what exactly do you do?
Well, similar. I will give a very high level concept similar to the way that Slack organized uh, communication channels in office departments. There's a lot of communication going on in college clubs, student groups, different student groups. So we want to organize them into one single app platform.
So, shall we start, Saurabh?
Yeah, I
I
think
think we should
we can
start
start. I
now
think
because
sure.
it's already 10:35. We shouldn't let people wait. We need to respect the time. Yeah. And
Parsi. So yeah, I sure, Mr. Parsi, welcome you on behalf of the whole Catalyst family. Like it's a real pleasure to have you among us to share your experience. Hi everyone. Good morning. We have Mr. Parthasarthy with us, who is a serial entrepreneur, and his current venture is LabinMotion, which is basically to support the entrepreneurs to bring their story to the world. Mr. Parthasarthy has completed his MBA from IIM Bangalore in 1994. He has over 3 decades of industry and entrepreneurial experience. He has published a book, Unmet Needs of Entrepreneurship, Why Entrepreneurs Do What They Do. And his second book is coming on customer value itself very soon. He's been launching many startups before. So welcome, sir. It's a real pleasure to have you among us. Looking forward to hear you.
yeah, thanks, Saurabh. So let's hit it to the chase without too much of
Yes.
waste of time. And I'll tell you what the session is all about. This is about discovering customer value. This is something that, like Saurabh mentioned, it's It's a part of the book that I'm actually have written. It should get published this October. That's what we're looking at. It's being published by Rupa Publishers, my my publisher of the earlier book. Now, before we kickstart, let's do a small activity. I invite you to take a piece of paper and draw a scenery. I can't see you all. I'm just stopping the sharing. You can hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'd like you to. I solicit your cooperation. Just draw on a piece of paper a scenery, whatever comes to your mind. Will take 30 seconds or 40 or 1 minute, less than a minute. You can draw any scenery, anything that comes to your mind. Take any small piece of paper that's next to you, and if you don't have a piece of paper, just visualize it. It's perfectly okay. If you're done, would someone like to show what you've drawn, maybe on the screen so that others can see, or you want to describe it? Anyone who was finished, would you like to volunteer to describe or show it so that others can see? Ashutosh, you're smiling, so you're the first one to go. Would you like to show what you've drawn? Are you done?
No, I was not able to
I can't
complete the
hear
drawing,
you.
but I thought of beaches of Fiji, sunny beaches with water rippling like that.
Pardon me?
Beaches of
Okay,
Fiji.
beaches, and then what? Off?
Fiji island, Fiji, near Australia.
Oh, Fiji Islands.
Yes,
Okay. The Fiji Islands, the beach, and you have some mountains there.
yes, there are some volcanic mountains and
Yeah.
shallow waters. Beaches are
Okay.
nice, and there are sun. There's a sun.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thanks for sharing. Srinivasan, would you like to go?
Yeah, I'm so poor in drawing,
Okay.
so I just drew some.
Okay.
This is just the basic one that which you used to do it in the childhood.
Okay.
I'm actually so poor in drawing, so I just.
No, that's
that's
okay.
the only thing
Would you like to quickly, share what you have actually drawn?
I just the mountains and then some crows, like flying in the background.
Okay.
The typical drawing which was taught about in the childhood.
Sure. Thank you so much. Thanks for sharing. Anusha, would you like to, if you're done?
Yeah, I mean, this. I hope.
Yeah,
very.
I'm not able. I can see a palm tree there. I'm not sure if.
Yeah, so it's a tree with a mountain and the sunrise and some
Okay.
water.
Okay, very nice. Mr. Ashok, you want to share? Yes. Yeah, anyone could go. I can't see anything. Would you want to just quickly go through it, run us through what you've drawn? Can't hear you, Ashok. You're on mute.
Oh, sorry. So I drew a tree, birds, and a hut.
Okay. Another one or two, and then we'll quickly move on. Anyone else wants to share?
Yeah, so basically the backdrop that I have.
You seem to be right now sitting in a very nice place.
Correct, sir. I'm in bead billing. It's a uh, southern part of the Kangra Valley.
Okay, okay. So what have you drawn? You've drawn the valley.
Correct, sir. And people trying adventure sports, rock climbing, mountain biking,
Okay,
paragliding.
okay.
Yes.
Hey, thanks for sharing, all of you. I think anything that any thoughts in terms of this small exercise where we have had some 4 5 responses. Any quick thoughts that anyone wants to share? Anything that you noticed? See, the others haven't shared, but if I'm sure if you were to ask them, perhaps they would have the same set of elements in the scenery. You'd have mountains, you'd have a rising sun, you'd have some birds, you have a lovely stream. Ashutosh had Fiji there, but you still had water and you had a rising sun and you had some mountains, etc. Right? So actually, Ashutosh and I think Ankush had a slightly different scenery, but more or less, if you look at it, most of us would probably do the same thing. You know, we'd have same elements in the scenery. So there are two takeaways from this. One is it's good to see that most of us think alike. You know, because it means as an entrepreneur, you are going to have a set of people, customers who think alike about your product, about your solution, about your brand, which is a good news. So you at least can sell whatever you have to because you're going to have an audience. There are people out there who have similar thoughts. Number two is like someone mentioned, you know, you, I think Srinivasan mentioned that this is something that takes him back to school. Perhaps in the intervening period, you haven't had the opportunity to draw a scenery. And what you do when you're asked to draw a scenery is you dip into your memory of your childhood memory and recreate whatever is there, correct? So which also means that most of what we do is centered around certain beliefs that we have that goes back to your childhood, right? And beliefs play an extremely important role in even for a marketer, for an entrepreneur, in terms of how do you change the way someone looks at your product, looks at your solution, looks at your brand, right? The flip side to it is, you know, when everyone starts thinking alike, it's also a problem because entrepreneurs they are expected to come out with solutions which are different, which means there's that much more effort that you need to put in to bring something to the table that's very different. The ideation part, so which would mean that you need to, all of you, whether advertently, inadvertently, consciously, unconsciously, would be getting into some kind of divergent thinking mode where you're constantly thinking about what is it that I need to do that's different. Right. I just wanted to illustrate, drive home this point because I'm talking to a set of entrepreneurs about the role of mindsets and how it determines the way we think, not only as entrepreneurs, also as customers. And also how there are a lot of people who think alike, and we are conditioned by and predisposed based on our own experiences and memories of the past. So that was I just wanted to drive home the point before we kickstart the session. Today's session is all about, it's all connected to this in terms of, you know, all of you would have gone through sessions about CVP, customer value proposition. Is there a structured process around understanding what the customer truly wants? So what we will be going to, what I will attempt to do today is take you through a framework that will allow you to at least explore different ways of understanding your customer and understanding what is the customer truly values in a structured format. What we have experienced is most people do it, but there is no structure around it, right? So that's what we'll be attempting to do today. Let me go to my sharing the, see, yeah, the format for the session is, you know, due to paucity of time, now and then I'll just stop and then we will ask for any questions, if anything that you wish to share, and then we'll move ahead. You're able to see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So this is, let's take a commonplace situation. This is, most of you, I'm sure, are amateur photographers yourselves. Here's a picture of a person who's using a Nikon camera to capture wildlife photography. Now, if you just observe this action, you would find different components to it. One is the person is using a tool. There's a cameraman who's using a tool supplied by someone. Out here it's Nikon, and that person shoots pictures. The output is a photograph, digital or otherwise. The outcome is high quality photo. Yeah, it enables him to generate revenue for himself if he's a great photographer. There's an impact also, nature conservation. So here's this person, what he does is after taking these pictures, because he's passionate about natural photography and wildlife, he goes to various schools and takes these lectures and displays his photographs. He sensitizes children to the value of the planet, about preserving nature and conservation related issues. That is the impact that he seeks to achieve for himself. And there is a context in which he loves taking photography, which is the natural context, the wildlife photography. Now, today what I'm sharing with you is I'm sharing a framework that I have developed, which is part of my upcoming book. What we do is to understand what is it that the customer actually truly values. One of the starting points is to look at customer actions. Now, here I'm going to distinguish between customer actions and customer behavior. Behavior is an aggregation of action. I'm just trying to clarify. Some of you would probably know intuitively. I'm just stressing the point that behavior is different from action. Behavior is a set of actions, the aggregation of actions. For example, when you say someone is rude behavior, it basically means there are a set of actions that you interpreted it as being rude and you've given it a name called rude. Could be the way someone speaks, the language, the gesticulations, the facial expressions, etc. You classify different sets of actions and you put them under a class called behavior. So what we do is, if you want to understand, if you want to get insights into how the customer thinks, feels, and behaves, it's a good idea to look at customer action, because most of your insights you will get from observing customer actions. That is what I wanted to highlight. So this example that I've given, you take any action, you can actually chunk it down to its components. I think my power is gone. Hello. Hello.
You're
No,
still
you're
audible.
on. You're
Yeah, I
audible.
think the power
Yes,
is
we can
gone
hear
over
you.
here.
We can
Yeah.
hear you.
Okay. So this is the framework. This is a framework. It's called the customer action cycle. So any action, any customer action, any customer uses a tool. In the earlier, in the example, there's a cameraman using a camera. The tool is usually supplied by someone. Someone like you, an entrepreneur, a businessman who's supplying. So what we say is, suppliers or entrepreneurs or businesses, they supply strategies that will help customers meet their needs, right? Many of you would be familiar with, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the drill bit example of Theodore Levitt. Theodore Levitt is a famous Harvard professor. He used to tell his students, the customer is not wanting to buy a drill, he's wanting a hole, right? To make a hole, he's buying the drill. So as a businessman, that's the reason why I'm sure many of you would have gone through many sessions where they say, don't focus on the product, you focus on the benefits, right? What you provide the customers is just a tool to help them meet their needs. You're a provider of solutions, you're a provider of tools, you're a provider of strategies. So this is the customer action cycle, where we look at every customer action, we chunk it down to different components, and we try to look at two very important questions. Where does customer value reside, and how do you find it? Yeah. So let's take some examples, because examples is one that actually drives home certain concepts. Now, I'm not sure how many of you, because all of you seem to be from different parts of India. The one at the center is a very famous hotel, South Indian hotel called MTR. MTR, many of you may be familiar. This is called Mavalli Tiffin Room. Anyone from Bangalore would know MTR. So this tiffin room is almost 90 years old. They serve, if you go to this hotel, you have these long benches, and the walls are adorned with black and white photographs of people who used to evangelize and popularize this place. Ex-chief ministers, bureaucrats, politicians, everyone used to visit this place. So it's an iconic place, but if you go to the place, it's a very small place, right? But people still go there, and they have to wait for 45 minutes. You get South Indian meals. You have to wait for 45 minutes. I'm sure in each of your cities, yeah, you have some iconic hotel like this, which is a must visit for anyone visiting the city. Every city has its own story. You go to Ahmedabad, you have the Agishai, right? I'm sure you go to other places, you'll have a Haldiram hotel somewhere in Nagpur. I'm not sure, but I'm just saying, in every city you have this. Now the question out here is obviously, what makes people visit a Mawali tiffin room? It's an old 90-year-old. You just have benches out there. It's like a classroom kind of a bench. People are waiting there. It's not swanky, but everyone visits, right? Another example I'll give you. I'll stop after that and seek your inputs. Another example is India Hike. Some of you, because you're all in the Himalayas, you probably will be familiar with the story of this India Hikes. It's located in Bangalore. They organize treks in the Himalayas. It's the largest outdoor trekking company in India, and they organize treks for the corporate sector and also for the education sector. And some of you would have probably even gone for India Hikes treks. The third one is good old Maggie. Maggie, if to just give you a quick background, when it actually started, most people, they were targeting, the companies targeting the mother. And then they realized that it was targeted at as a substitute for lunch and dinner. But somehow that didn't work. It took them quite some time to do after a lot of market research. Then they realized that it's not a lunch item or a dinner item. Then they looked at it as a snack item, right? So I'm going to just stop here because this is not very interactive. It's kind of a bit of a challenge when I'm stopping here to just seek your inputs on what we have shared just now. You're able to see my screen now? Hello?
No, sir, we can't see.
Was there a connectivity problem? Because the power went off out here for a few minutes. Okay, I'll just pause out here. And any initial thoughts or questions around what I've presented? Any quick thoughts? Any quick thoughts on these examples that I presented? Anyone wishes to share?
Yeah.
Anything that rings a bell?
Yeah. So I think. Sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Ashok.
Oh, sorry. Okay. So the brand itself, it speaks its benefits. If you remember if you just actually think about the Maggie, it's a snack, right? So when you think about the brand, and it automatically thinks that what it gives, that's a benefit.
Okay. Anusha, you had some thought?
Yeah, so I think it's the brand which is always connected with a story, and I think people relate, or the customer, anybody relates to the story very well. Like you mentioned, Maggie. So you go back to some story connected to your childhood or MTR, basically. So you start feeling nostalgic about something, and you start connecting to the product, and that's when your buying fee or quotient increases. So a brand is always connected with a story.
Sure. Okay, the slide, let me quickly tell you what is it that I was trying to say in that. I hope you got the essence of the what I'm going to talk about. I wanted to set the context. I gave you an example of a person using a tool to do something, and there are various components to that. Then we moved on to a much more diagrammatic representation of what is actually happening out there. You have a customer having a tool, executing action, using the tool, and there is an outcome, there's an impact, there's a supplier who supplies the tool, there's a context around everything. So the first slide that I showed you with three examples, three pictures, is basically to highlight the idea of context and the importance of context. Every action, every behavior is a set of actions, takes place in a particular context. And the context can be extremely important in determining how valuable something is to someone, for a customer. Let me give you a simple example. In fact, Anusha just mentioned about MTR and how it takes you back to your childhood, nostalgia, etc. So it is the food in MTR may be good. Obviously, people go there, but there are a lot of other restaurants too who serve fantastic food. But why MTR? Now you have these walls that are adorned with black and white pictures, etc. It gives you a sense of history, sense of the past. So it's the context that attracts you. The context can be a narrative, could be a story, the images that have been created, right? The context is very valuable to your customer. Customer can walk into any other hotel, but they come to MTR. Why? Because there's a context, maybe history. You want to feel part of Bangalore's history. You want to walk in and see how it feels to just go and have food out there, right? So there are examples of businesses that are centered around context, because the context in themselves provide extremely high value to a customer. So when in your businesses, the questions that you need to ask is, what are the kind of contexts that will attract customers? Okay, and what are the kind of see, even out here, let me give you a simple example to illustrate the point that I'm making. Suppose you are a supplier of, say, school uniforms, right? So one is to directly supply the uniform and look at it as a B2C segment where you have parents, you go and talk to parents, the kids are going to school. A second option is to actually go to schools and sell your product. Because why would you do that? Because there is all your customers, the end consumers, are congregating to a particular place called the school, and to you it makes a lot of sense going to the school and talking to the school. You have the context is the school for you, and it makes a lot of sense for you to target the context rather than the end consumers, because when you address the context, that is where all the customers come. Getting the point? Let's say you have a business, you set up a restaurant on a highway. I'm not very familiar with Himachal Pradesh, but let's say from Bangalore to Chennai, right? So you have a highway, you have a lot of highway restaurants. Now the highway restaurants have been set up to address the needs of a highway customer. So there's a context in which the business runs. It's the highway customer. So at times it makes a lot of sense for you to target the context rather than the customer, because the context in itself is going to attract a lot of customers. So in your own businesses, you can ask that question. Right? Now, the example of I'd given India Hikes. India Hikes is very popular in South India. In South India, look, for people in Mandi, snow, etc., is an everyday affair. It's snowing out there. Some people in the South, they never seen snow. So India Hikes provides the context, the opportunity, lifetime opportunity, once in a lifetime opportunity to go and see the Himalayas, to go and see the mountains, experience the snow, etc. The context is just the Himalayas. Himalaya itself is a context. In fact, they focus only on the Himalayas. Right? So their business is centered around the context. Wedding planners. There are people who there are businesses that are focused on weddings. Wedding is like any other event. right? But wedding is a very special context for the customer, where they're willing to pay more money for the same similar kind of event, because it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. The point that I'm driving is the context can determine value for your customer. Maggie, the context was, they started by looking at lunch and dinner. Then they realized it's lunch and dinner, those contexts were not appealing. They could not substitute dal, chawal, and roti, right? So what they did was they looked at Maggie as a snack item, where children come back from school and they're hungry and they have a snack item. That clicked. So the context changed. It's no longer a meal item, it is a snack item. So context can mean anything. It could be the time of the day when you're consuming, where are you consuming something, what is the location, right? I just wanted to drive home the point that contexts are very important, and they play an important role in just one second. Yeah, they play an important role in determining value for the customer. It's just not the product or the solution, it's also the context. Let me go back to my sharing the screen. Any questions, any thoughts on that? Does it make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So here's a quick, you can see my screen? So here's a quick summary of what I'm saying. In your own businesses, ask yourself, another important question is your product or solution, what are the other contexts in which your product or solution can be used, right? How do you look at the context of usage of your product or solution? You might find out, you might come across some very interesting use cases where people might find more value in what you're offering. So what exactly are the contexts in which your product or a solution is going to be perceived as being of greater value? And maybe that could become a niche target audience for you, a niche target segment for you. When a context has a very clear ownership, you may as well target the context. Like I give you the example of a school. There's an ownership for the context. If for example you're a beverages company, like say United Breweries, right? So what would they? One is they would supply their products through a retail store, but they also realize that there are corporate parties where alcohol is consumed. So they would also have a corporate marketing manager who goes after these contexts. The context being corporate parties. Right? I just wanted to drive home the point that context is extremely important for any business, and it adds value. Customers find that very valuable. So now this again, it's like 2x2 matrix. I don't want to confuse it too much, but essentially the point I'm making is, contexts are internal and external to you. External context, a time of the day, when, where something happens, festivals, Amazon $1 billion sale is targeted at a specific festival. It's a context, right? They do everything around a context. Yeah. Now what we will be doing right now is I am going through this particular picture diagram and quickly running you through all these elements, what we call the value nodes and the value catalysts. And just to drive home the point is, when you think about a business, about your products, about a solution, just think through these elements, and you might discover something very interesting that you didn't know about a customer and what a customer truly wants. That's where you are going to create differentiators. Now, for example, now if you look at now the second, what I refer to as a value node. First, we looked at the context, the importance of context that in determining what the customer actually values. Now, number two is the customer himself or herself. If you bark up the wrong tree, most of the businesses do that. If you bark up the wrong tree, you're going to allocate resources, spend a lot of time and money, And at the end of the day, it's going to be an issue if you don't get your customer right. And this happens in almost every business. I'll give you a couple of examples to drive home the point. Red Bus, all of you would probably know about Red Bus. It was taken over by Vivo, I think, for $140 million in 2016 or 14 or something. But when they started their business, I'm not sure how many of you know that they started, it is obviously a platform where you have the bus operators and you have the travelers. They started with talking to bus operators. Bus operators didn't show any interest in the product. It's too much of a headache for them. You very unorganized segment. So they were facing difficulties in terms of adoption. People were not interested. Interestingly, they discovered that the travelers, then next they started targeting the travelers, the B2C segment. And because of the pressure from the travelers, the B2B bus transporters were forced to adopt to the new ways of working. And most people don't know that they had to actually pivot. Starting with B2B, they pivoted, they realized B2B is not working, then they started looking at B2C, right? And that worked for them because the B2C segment actually put a lot of pressure on the demands of the B2C, put a lot of pressure on the B2B. On the lower end, I'm not going to go through every example for shortage of time. On the lower end is basically what one refers to as studio apartment. And last 10 years, perhaps, this has become very popular amongst young couples, millennials, etc. So what large builders, this segment was totally ignored in the past, right? Then they realized, abroad, etc., you have people who go for the small studio apartments. It's a 450 square feet, but for a young couple, it's fairly okay, or for millennials, for bachelors, etc., it's a very comfortable place. And then they realized that, maybe we should start a new segment called the studio apartments. And so these days, you have large builders across India. When they actually create a township, one block would be studio apartments. Because that was once again unserved customer segment, which they identified as being an interesting segment. And they realized that a lot of youngsters, they prefer being closer to the center of the city. Even if the apartment is small, it is very convenient. And they threw in a lot of facilities. So though the apartment sizes are small, the design is in such a way that you have foldable beds, you have foldable dining tables, you have mirrors placed for sunlight, and you have all the works out there to make it look spacious. And also you have the facilities, that lifestyle facilities. You'll have a lovely gym, etc. So what happens is the point that I'm making out here is getting your customer right is extremely important. Understanding your customer, which can actually help you in discovering new customer segments. Now there's a next picture. This basically extends what I was referring to about customers, because there are some customers who might think what you're offering is great, but they might be very skeptical, of what you're offering. Just one second. Yeah. So in terms of customer segmentation, most of you would be familiar with, you segment your customers based on their behavior, what people refer to psychographics, beliefs, values, etc. And the demographics, which again, most of you would be familiar with. But I'll just give you a simple example. I have seen a lot of, especially with respect to women, even men, it applies. So there are, even my wife, for example, she's in the late 40s, but she doesn't drive a car. And if you ask them, they know driving a car and learning a car is extremely important, but they would still not go and buy a car because they're not confident about driving. So even in your own your products and solutions, there might be customers who know what you're selling is interesting enough, but they think that they don't have the skills to execute the particular behavior. So demographics, they might be the right target segment. They can afford your car or whatever product that you're selling, they believe that the car is useful to take them from one point to another, but the behavior they exhibit is not conducive to buying a car because they don't have the skills. Right? So that could be an interesting segment. If you think there are enough number of people who don't have a skill, and you are into selling cars, you'll probably start training them. So you'll probably start a training school to onboard them. That's exactly what TVS did for in the two-wheeler segment, and when Maruti does in the four-wheeler segment, right? And there are companies in the software side. If you find that the software adoption is a problem because of the lack of skills, can I throw in a free training program? What kind of resources can I actually extend so that it becomes easy to onboard a customer? So that is the point that is making out here. So the time is 11:11. Okay, we can do this quick experiment, or we might just, this will end up being a monologue. Just, I have stopped sharing. Yeah, you can hear me now. Any quick questions? Any quick thoughts on that you want to share or ask questions? Oh, okay, let's do this quick. You can see this pen in my hand. What do you think it actually does for the customer? Now, this is a Reynolds pen that I have. What does it do for me? Any quick thoughts? This is a day-to-day, object that we all use.
Helps you write.
Okay.
It helps you communicate.
Okay.
For me, this is that pen that I can carry with me, and if I lose it, it's okay. It's fine. So it gives me that kind of thing. It's not one of my favorite pens, but it does the work.
Sure,
like that.
Sure. So what exactly does it do for you?
Documentation.
So what exactly does it do for you?
It helps you translate your thoughts into words.
Okay.
It helps you in documentation.
Okay. Okay. Hey, thanks for all those inputs. Basically, I think what Srinivasan mentioned, for example, there are different ways of looking at this. Usually, we look at it as a writing instrument. If you look at advertisements, ads, etc., they would probably call it a writing instrument, correct? So another way to look at it is it is a device that helps you express your thoughts, and that's what Srinivasan mentioned, right? So if that is the way you look at this instrument, then the way you look at your business is very different. Then the next question you'll ask is, what are the other ways to express my thoughts other than a pen? Right? Then someone would come and tell you, hey, why can't we look at audios? Why can't we look at videos? Can we do, podcast which will enable someone to share through audio, or can we have a YouTube or video where someone can upload a video and share their thoughts? So the point that I'm making out here is the way you define yourself and what your product does for the customer will also impact the way you look at your business, right? So if you're making cars, are you into the automobile business, or are you into the transportation business? Right? If you look at yourself as someone who's in the transportation business, then you would probably look at other alternatives. You may still continue manufacturing automobiles, but you have opened up that space for yourself to at least ask questions. So if I may still continue to make pens, but I would still be aware of the fact that I am in the business of expressing thoughts, and what are the other ways to do it. If I don't do it, I'm going to be close-minded. I'll look at my product or solution through a very narrow lens. So I just wanted, the reason for this is to understand what needs in business lingo, what needs are being met by using this particular device or product. This is just a product that is supplied by someone else. but what needs of the customer is being met. The needs to express yourself, need for self-expression, need for sharing thoughts, need to be heard. Someone said communicate, right? So I just wanted to drive home the point about the importance of identifying what truly the customer is wanting or needing while using your product or service. If not, you might just end up focusing on your product and not on the needs that are being met. So the next, what we refer to as a value node is a tool. Now, each time I'll be just reminding you, just to provide the context of why we are discussing this, is to understand where is the customer going to find value. Now, this is a pretty straightforward thing, right? So the product or the solution that you actually provide, how is it different? Is it efficient? Is it effective? What is its impact on productivity, efficiency, etc., right? The product design, all that is going to determine value for the customer. I'll give one or two quick examples and we'll move on. Here is a washing machine. It's made in China. It's one of the largest white goods manufacturer in the world. Some years back, they started getting the customer complaints from a rural a farm in China, and people kept complaining that the pipe, what is the pipe called? The drainage pipe. The drainage pipe was getting clogged. So you had the sales representative who went and visited, and he realized that there's a lot of mud in the drainage pipe. They quickly realized that the washing machine was used for washing vegetables by the farmers. So that is a great insight. Hair is incidentally known for innovation, and they take customer inputs very seriously. It went to the CEO and he said, "Hey, there's a great opportunity." They did a simple tweak. They just they changed the dia of the drainage pipe, and they advertised the the washing machine as a machine that when farmers can use. That was a big hit among the farming community. So just by tweaking the product functionality and feature, it addressed the specific need of a farmer. Yeah, instead of negating and being in denial, and instead of trying to educate them that shouldn't be used for vegetables, they changed the product so that it can also be used for cleaning vegetables. ID Vada, many of you would have heard. It's a homegrown FMCG company, foods company. They came out with this Vada maker. Very interestingly, it took them almost 3 years to patent that. You get Vada, as you all know, is a very delicious food snack item that's popular in South India. It's like a donut, and in the center you have a hole. But making that can be pretty hard. And especially as increasingly we get things just we pick up from the fridge and start making ready-made stuff, and making a vada with a hole can be a pretty difficult task. So what they came out with this nozzle which is designed to make those vadas with a hole, right? So this example is about packaging. So this nozzle came like any other product that you would have seen. You see it comes with a specially made nozzle that helps you make those vadas. So by innovating on the packaging, right, they were able to create a differentiator. Here was the product feature. So by when your own whatever product or services that you're offering, check out if you can tweak something that adds great value to your customer. It's like a lever. One small change can make a large difference for a different set of customers. So that is the point that I was trying to drive home. What is it about your tool that adds value to your customer? Is it the design? Is it the aesthetics? Is it the use case? The context in which they're using it? Right. Next is the action. Action can also be very important. By observing customer actions, you can get great insights into the kind of value that you need to provide, the kind of solutions that you need to develop. On the right hand side, again, I'll take one or two examples and we'll move on. There's a product called Rotimatic. Some of you would have perhaps heard of Rotimatic. It was started by a husband and wife. They right now, they were in Singapore, relocated to the US. They had a $40 million turnover maybe a couple of years back. They sell, it's a Rotimatic, as you would have guessed, is a automatic roti making machine. Now, how did this idea come about? So the lady who is an inventor, so she noticed, she was also working after marriage. She relocated to Singapore, and she noticed that making rotis for a working woman coming and, the thing is, it's a very arduous kind of a thing. It takes a lot of time. And she noticed that people use rotis, you ultimately, you roll rotis on the kitchen slab, granite slab, then you need to clean it. And she also realized that, when there are guests at home, typically the woman at home who's responsible or takes ownership of the kitchen space is the one who's sitting and making rotis for everyone, whereas others are enjoying their food, right? So she realized that roti making as an exercise has a lot of disadvantages. First thing, you need to know how to mix the oil, make the atta, knead it, make perfectly circular rotis. So she thought, why can't I automate the process? So this is basically an output of that particular observation. But the whole idea of making this machine came by observing customer actions, by observing what women go through while making rotis and trying to see if she can address it through some kind of an automation. So by observing customer actions, you can actually discover those small little things which can add value. Number two is a scooty. Most of you would have used scooty, the scooty pep. When it started, it was a unisex product. Hey, can you all hear me?
Yes.
I'm audible, Saurabh? I'm checking now and then. I'll keep checking. I'm okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
You're clear.
So another example is a scooty. Okay. So the reason why I was asking for confirmation, I would just end up talking to the screen without knowing what's happening. So you have the scooty. Scooty, when it started, it was a unisex product. So men and women were using it. Then TVS noticed that invariably a lot of women were using scooty, and they started tweaking on the design. So their marketing guys, they were asked to go and observe the action taken by women. What is it that will help women to make a product that's friendly for women? Then they noticed there are 2-3 things which sometimes we take it for granted, but a lot of women, conventionally, if you look at traditional homes, the women at home, at least now it's different, say 25, 30 years back, it's them. They have the divided responsibilities. Women look after stereotyping, women look after the house, the kids, etc. And the men are the one who will go and get the sabji. They have to go and take the family out for a vacation, etc. So women used to feel shy about when driving a scooter because people look at them, in a peculiar way. And also the scooter also was not very conducive. Then they realized a few quick things by just looking at how the scooters are used by women and why they don't use it. Simple things like applying the stand. They realized that applying the central stand is very hard for women. Number two, kickstart. Kick-starting the scooter can be painful. It's a strain on the legs. Changing the gear. All men who have, anyone for that matter, men, women, if you've driven any gear-based vehicle, two-wheeler or four-wheeler, it's a bit of a pain. And for on a scooter, it can, you had this Bajaj, Chetak, etc. It can be a strain on the hand, just changing the gear. Changing the gear, applying the stand, the height of the scooter. Height of the scooter was a problem. How do you make an entry? Most of the women, they notice that they wear saris. So for them to raise legs and sit on a bike kind of a thing is a problem. So they wanted a front entry, right, for the vehicle. Then storage. So these are all the things, and the color and the design. Don't forget color and the design. That's also extremely important. And they worked on all of this, came out with a gearless vehicle, uh, electric start, easy to apply stand, very attractive colors, and a lot of women and girls, for example, they started using it for going to college, right? And another thing that they noticed was a lot of women were hesitant because they didn't want to be seen in a men's driving school going and learning how to drive a scooter or ride a scooter. So they started a school. TVS started a school just for women. It was focused only for women, women riders, instructors for women, and that was a big hit. Now, again, coming to the point, I just wanted you to focus on customer actions. If you're providing a product or a solution, what exactly does the customer do with that to solve his or her problem? And is there some other some nuances, something that you observe can be of great value to the customer, right? And that could be a positioning also for you in terms of differentiator. These are outcomes. So the next question that you want to ask is, I am using a product. What are outcomes for the customer? When you talk about outcomes, we look at two aspects. One is outputs. You input something to a device, black box, you have an output. That is at more at the functional level. Does the if you're driving a car, is there any noise in the car when you're driving the car? Can I change the gear? Is a nice cushioning? What's the boot space, right? All that is related to outputs. Outputs could also mean how quickly it accelerates. What is the mileage? That's an output. Outcome is what does it do for me as a customer? What is the customer benefit? So when you talk about desirable outcomes for a customer, you look at what is an output of the device, and what is the outcome. Outcome is more to do with what does it do for the customer. For example, if you come and sell me a car and say this car is fantastic, it accelerates to 90 kilometers per hour in 10 seconds, that would be great technology innovation for you, but it makes no sense for me. If I'm residing in Bangalore, it adds absolutely no value. And if you expect me to pay extra money, probably I owed it, right? So the question in any of whatever you're offering, products, solutions, are you building a good enough product, like Clayton Christensen would often say, or are you trying to complicate your product that no one is going to use? The constant complaint of products like SAP and all that is, it's too complex. You have hundreds of features. People end up using maybe 5 features. So if you're building a software platform, it's a good idea not to keep on building, very tempting to keep on building layers of functionalities. So you'll have to pause and step back and say, what is it the customer really wants? What is the problem it is solving for the customer, right? So outcome is extremely important. Cortex is again sanitary pads, and again lack of time. I'm not going to spend too much time. You can go and check out the net. It's a product of the First World War, and Kimberly Clark's product. And the right hand side, what you see is a brush. That is also a very interesting thing. The blue marker that you see at the center of the brush, people notice that when people use toothbrushes, they don't keep track of the life of the brush. When after the brush is worn out, they still continue using the brush. So they wanted to give an indication to the customer as to when they need to throw the brush away. So that blue marker is an innovation that indicated, it's a dye that indicated to the user when they need to stop. The blue changes into white. And when that happens, the life of the brush is over. You need to change your brush, right? That is called the Oral-B. That's a Oral-B toothbrush. Again, here the point, driving home the point is, ask yourself, what are the desirable outcomes for your customer? And as much as you'd like to focus on the functionality, ask what does the increase in productivity, effectiveness, or efficiency for the customer means to that person, right? What does it actually do for them? So be careful about outcomes and outputs. You need to differentiate between the two. Outputs is something that, I give you the car example, 90 kilometer per hour in 10 seconds is a great output, but it's not a desirable outcome for someone in Bangalore because I can't drive the car at those speeds. This one is the impact. What is the impact that you're making what is the impact for the customer when someone buys your product? When you're talking about impact, outcome is usually you talk about what is the outcome for the customer. When you talk about impact, we look at everyone else other than the customer. What is the impact of using the product on my immediate family, on my local community, on the environment, right? So you're talking about, because people connect to impact. A lot of people connect to impact. When I'll give you a couple of examples and you'll know what I'm talking about. Gopinath is there in the top right, Deccan Airlines. The way he positioned his airlines, and it's a budget airline. Southwest Airlines is the largest budget airline in the world. He copied that format and he brought it to India. His idea was, he used to often say that I want the auto driver or my peon in the office to be able to take his family by flight. It is not for the rich people. It can be accessed by anyone. I want people all over India to be able to fly at affordable rates. Right now, that is a huge impact. So, as someone who wants to book a ticket, the whole tagline and the impact story is very appealing to someone. Even to corporates, they would say, hey, all of you, a sales guy, it's a good incentive, go by flight, you save time, we save money, and you feel good about it. So what is the impact on society that Gopinath actually brought about? And that's the airline industry. Bottom left is a very famous case study. It's called Tom's Shoes. Tom Shoes is, you had this person who went to Argentina and he found a lot of, an American, he found a lot of children without chappals. So he went back, it disturbed him a lot. So he went back to his place and he said, he developed these shoes. It was called branded as Tom's Shoes. What basically he did was, for every pair of shoes that the customer bought, he would donate a pair of shoes to an underprivileged child in some part of the world. Now that, where you're trying, what we refer to as double bottom line benefit. Not only you're buying a product, by buying the product, you're actually impacting someone's lives. And you don't mind paying that extra money, because if that cause is very dear to your heart, you want to be seen to be supporting that cause. And here you need to be very cognizant of a particular fact. Actions speak louder than words. So if you say that, when in your own businesses, I've seen businesses in organic farming and people doing other things. If you want to have a social impact, you need to be seen to be doing something. You can't just say that I'm doing this and people are not going to believe it. So Tom Shoes, for example, they have statistics. They have a separate department that just does this. They track, they supply. They have supplied to almost 70 million children pairs of shoes. They've supplied all around the world. And the best interesting part was, the product was evangelized and promoted by all the celebrities for free. Celebrities are very expensive, but all of them became brand ambassadors. Scarlett Johansson, Alia Knightley, a lot of these big stars, they started promoting Tom's Shoes. And Tom's Shoes had zero marketing, but so they didn't have to pay anyone anything, because the power of the appeal, and you need to be seen to be doing it. They did the same thing for eyewear. So they started selling eyewear. They said, for every eyewear that we buy, we will restore the eyesight of a child in some part of the world. And they've done it. They have done it for 5 lakh children around the world. Right. I'll just stop with these two, because the third one is also very exciting. It's the top left. It's called Hasirudullah. For waste management, rack pickers in Bangalore. The rack picking activity, that particular community is looked down upon by everyone. They think actually they do a great favor to us by keeping a city clean, but they're not respected at all. So you had a set of people who wanted to give them a sense of dignity in terms of what they're doing. And waste management became a revenue generating exercise. The standard format, at least in Bangalore, is the polluters pay for the pollution that they create. So Hasridullah would get this organic, the waste segregated to organic and non-organic, and all the large consumers, generators of waste, like apartment complexes, etc., they would go in these trucks and process them and get them in different bags and process them and then supply it to wherever, right? Now, for that, the apartment complex, the polluters pay is the formula, and most of them are more than willing to pay because someone is coming picking up your stuff, and it's for a good cause. The point that I'm making is simple, just repeating: impact. Impact story is important. Your products and solution and services that you're providing, who else does it impact other than the customer? Is there a bigger narrative that you can focus on? People just don't buy on outcomes, they buy on impact. So this is just and supplier is the last, what we refer to in the framework as the value node, is supplier. What is it about the supplier? When you buy a product, for example, you just don't buy a product because the product is great. You're also looking at the supplier. What does the supplier stand for? Are the values of the supplier mapped to my personal values? If you're buying a house tomorrow, who do you trust, with the Tata housing, or would you some local builder? You would go for Tata because they stand for something. It's very important one for you to be able to walk the talk. If you go to a customer and say, we are known for a credibility, for a promptness, for responsiveness, you need to be seen to be doing that. Turnaround times, so that you're building a brand around something that you stand for. So the supplier brand, people buy because of the suppliers, the values that the suppliers espouse. These two are again famous examples. On the top is you have the Dollar Shave Club, which is very famous. That is a separate case study. The bottom one is Patagonia, again a famous case of social and environment activism combined with business. That's $1 billion business now, right? The person doesn't manufacture anything; he outsources everything. Even in Dollar Shave Club, they never manufactured. They got the plates from Dorco from South Korea, but they were irreverent. Why I took these two examples is, the first one is Dollar Shave Club. They built an image of a supplier who's irreverent, rebellious, who doesn't care, flamboyant, etc. And youngsters just bought into that image, right? They were able to relate to that image. So what is the image that you want to create for yourself? And you need to walk the talk, obviously. Patagonia is about social activism and environment protection. So for people who are aligned to that, they're going to buy Patagonia products, right? So because it is aligned to the way they think about the world. I'll just take a very quick break. We have another 25 minutes. I'll just quickly, any questions as of now? Or you want me to complete that and we'll take questions? And any thoughts, anything that you want to, any thoughts in terms of what I have shared?
Yeah, I like the teams.
I would like to ask that the agenda for the session today was that discovering customer value for your startup, and the slides that you have mentioned, the past slides, which stage of a startup do you get to truly discover customer value? I mean, it's obviously on a rolling basis, but first of all, you have to get a prototype, and there should be some inherent value that the customer is attracted towards, and then it's a discovery phase that goes on for years and years. So I mean, there is startup and there is a business, established business. So in what phase does this lie?
See, in fact, that's a very interesting question. This is about discovering value. As I said, I gave you examples of large corporates, say Hire, right? Or even if you look at Celeron, these are all large companies. Intel had done it. So you're constantly doing it. You're constantly looking at what is it. This is not a one stage, a one step kind of thing, but you're consciously aware of where the customer value resides all the time. So even if you build a product and it's not working, then you'll have to look at what is it about the product or the solution uh, where the customer is going to discover value. Maybe the context in which the product or solution is being used is not providing that value for the customer. Maybe in a different context, it might be interesting enough and providing value. Okay, or is it something about the product itself that is not okay? Maybe the design is not okay. Maybe the usability, there's an issue, correct? Or maybe there is a challenge in terms of using the product, the action, the skills. Is there a skilling? You build a complex software, but there is no training or skilling. Okay, so how do I onboard customers? Onboarding customers, is there a mechanism that where you as a supplier can help? In the software segment, you have if you have Adobe Photoshop, if you have say when an accounting software, Tally, etc. That's why you have so many centers that actually onboard you on Tally training. So you build an ecosystem around training. So the point that I'm making is, when you're looking at what is it that the customer values and whatever stage you are in, whether it's early stage startup or whether even an established business, you need to be constantly asking these questions. What is the impact story? If you are perhaps in probably in in say organic farming, etc. So what is the story there? Is the story about, or you provide home gardens, right? So is it about the product? Is it about the impact? What is it that is going to appeal to the customer? Why is he buying a home garden or a vertical garden, right? So I'm just trying to shift your attention to these areas, which will help you ask the right questions, so that you can constantly be aware of what is it that the customer is going to value in what you're offering. Make sense?
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
In any other question, anything else that pops up, or anything that is confusing, or anything that is not mapping into your expectations of the session? What you're thinking about the session and what you're actually hearing, is there okay?
Yeah. Hi, anyone, if you have any question, query, or anything you want to share with Mr. Parthasarthy, please go ahead. Yeah.
But Ashutosh, I hope I clarified that, right? So okay. So what I'll do is I'll quickly, maybe another 5-10 minutes, I'll quickly complete this.
Sure.
Question, Parthasarathy.
Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned that actually what impact your solution creates, correct? So the
Yeah.
people pay for only the impact; they are not paying for the outcome, correct? So when we explain to the customers, we need to tell the benefits also, right? Not just impact. Am I correct?
See, what I was trying to tell you is all these things are important. You don't know what is it that appeals to the customer. So for a customer, when you say benefits with respect to what? So, and I'm not saying outcomes is not important. I'm saying outcome is important, impact is important, action is important. You'll find value in all these things. There are some customers who would find the benefit of what you're offering very valuable to them, right? When you say benefit, when you talk about impact and benefit can be to the customer, it can be to society, it can be to community, it can be to family, correct? So here I'm trying to differentiate the two things. Outcomes are usually more customer centric. Impacts are non-customers. My immediate family, my community, my society, the environment, the government. So how does it impact others around me? And that can be very appealing. Waste management. If you're in the waste management business, The impact that I give you the example of Hasirudullah, the impact that you're making on people who are doing rack pickers and who are an important component of a society is extremely appealing to a lot of large bulk producers of waste. So when I'm going to go and pitch my waste management solution to a bulk generator of waste, as much as I'm going to talk about what I'm doing, I will also remind them that, by subscribing to my products and solution, they are also making an impact on the lives of people who are making a difference to us in society. That is a very strong pitch. That's a very strong pitch. So basically, you're trying to understand what is it that will connect to the customer. Is it the impact story? Is it an outcome story? Is it about the product? There are some customers who will buy a car that accelerates to 90 kilometers per hour in 10 seconds. It might not be of any use to them, but they're buying it. They're buying into the image of something they love. There are people who love German products and services, right? So they might be looking at the outcome. They may not necessarily look at impact. They may not care about it. Whether I can speed up to 90 kilometers per hour in Bangalore is of no consequence to them. Make sense?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
So I just wanted to quickly, I'll just take another 4-5 minutes and we'll complete this. Value catalysts are basically, these are all not jargons. These are basically placeholders for certain ideas. So it just draws your attention, shifts your attention to these ideas. These are the soft skills that are very important for someone. This is like, what a catalyst does in a chemical reaction. It can speed up the consumer decision-making process in your favor. So as much as you might have a product which is fantastic, people are willing to pay, you're talking to the right customers, they have the skills, they have everything with them, but they still don't buy the product. And the reason could be they don't have the motivation, they don't have the belief, right? So they don't believe in your product, they don't have motivation, they don't have belief in themselves that they can execute. They may have the skills, but they don't have the belief that they can execute certain actions to get the outcomes that they want. Motivation is also extremely important. If the customer is not motivated enough to use your product or solution, however good your product or solution might be, they may not be willing to buy into your product. When you talk about motivation, the 2-3 things you need to ask is your customer having fun using your product or solution? The frog is FROG. F is for fun. Is it rewarding for the customer? It's a mnemonic. Is it rewarding for the customer? Rewarding is not just tangible rewards, when intangible rewards. There's a customer who has ownership of your product or solution. Okay. And G is goals. Whose goals are you trying to meet? Is it your goal or is it the customer's goal? So just ask these questions about your offering and you will find some answers in that. You will find some insights. Beliefs, what are the beliefs that the customer hold about your product, about your solution, about themselves? We have examples out here. For example, you have White Hat Junior, the top one. It is all about beliefs. They cater to the beliefs that parents hold about education, about children. You ask parents, they say it's a highly competitive world. Children should know how to code from a 6-year-old, and they would say we are giving them exposure, right? So White Hat Junior is tapped into those beliefs of parents, fears about competition, fears about FOMO, fear of being left out. Right? So they are addressing the beliefs of health. Insurance is another sector. Insurance business plays on beliefs. Your coaching business plays on beliefs. If you don't go for IIT coaching, your children won't have a great career, right? So parents are but hassle. They want the best for the kids, and they put them in coaching, whether the kid likes it or not, right? So there are certain businesses that actually are centered. They address the core belief systems of the customer. Just 1 second. There's someone. Yeah. So what are your customers' beliefs about your product, about the supplier, about the impact? You might have everything, but if you don't have the beliefs and the motivation, the customer is not going to use it. Skills. Skills, I think I gave you the examples of the scooter, or the car. You might have the money to buy, the car is important to take you from place A to place B, but you might still not use the product because you don't have the skills. So what do? You start a riding academy, you enable them, you help them in upskilling themselves, whether software product, whether a scooter, whether a four-wheeler. So ask yourself whether the customer requires skills to use your product. Is it complicated enough? Okay. Resources. Resources is again very important. What are the resources that your customer want to be able to use a product? Apple uses it all the time for EMI because they're expensive products. So financial resources. Resources is not just about financial resources, access to expertise. For example, if you are in an incubator like IIT Mandi, there's a reason for that because they provide you access to resources, mentors. They provide you access to labs, perhaps, I don't know. But the reason that you seek certain things are because of the resources that you have access to when you actually avail of the service of the product. So these are what we call, these are catalysts, these are enablers. So if you might have everything, but if you don't have these enablers, your customers may not still buy your product. Emotions very important. Once again, your product or solution, what is the emotive appeal? uh, like I mentioned sometime back about Hasirudula, waste management. Does it have an emotive appeal? Does it give trigger the sense of contribution to society? How do you feel about it? you know so the empathetic part of the customer, how do you connect to that? So I'll stop here. I think I've taken some time on this. I'm just going to just stop here and take your questions. So let me just quickly summarize what I've gone through this session. Number one is providing you a structured process or way of looking at what a customer truly values. How do you discover it? Where does customer value reside, and how will you discover it? And where you looked at customer action. A customer is using a tool to execute an action that has outcomes, that has an impact. And all this happens in a particular context. And there are influencers, or what we call enablers, like is a customer motivated enough to use your product? Are they having fun? Is it rewarding? Do they have ownership? When I say ownership, the ideas of personalization, customization comes from that particular funnel of ownership of the product or the solution. And then you have beliefs, resources, emotions. Yeah. So I'll skills. So I'll stop here, and you may want to ask whatever questions that you have. Any thoughts, any questions? So if no one is asking a question, either our session has been extremely boring, right? So, or there is something to chew on, and which probably you want to reflect on it.
The later is true, sir.
So is there something that, some takeaway where it makes you reflect? The whole idea is to make you reflect. It's not to provide solutions. It's about to make you reflect in terms of what. No one has solution if you no one can give solutions for everything, right? So this is about providing a way of thinking through what you're doing and trying to understand the customer, and to see if you can discover something about the customer that you actually don't know. Anyone wants to talk about a specific business where you think you're facing a challenge, or you'd like to look at it through some other lens? You can feel free to talk about anything, and we can try to explore.
So this is Ankush from Parabooking. When you talked about the pivoting of Redbus from B2C, B2B to B2C, or about this frog thing, I mean, it's definitely insightful for us to revisit all those things. So probably a one-on-one session later would help. But yeah, this is very
Sure,
insightful.
not a problem. You said you're in which business?
It's a adventure sports related business. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I think some of the questions may probably resonate with your kind of business.
Right.
Why would someone come for adventure? What will motivate someone to avail of consumer services? And who are the kind of people who are going to avail your services?
Correct. And there's a lot of trust deficit in the market when it comes to adventure.
Yes.
Trying it in India.
Yeah. So what is the branding pull? The supplier, I was talking about people also buying to supplier images.
Right.
So what is it that you stand for, and how is it do you have the evidence that backs your standing? Now I give you the example of Tom's shoes, and
Right, and not to measure everything by, I mean, in terms of revenue, but impact. So
yeah. So here I've not gone into the what we have done this session is at the heart of any business. Before when you start building value solution, creating value, these are some of the questions, but this is not a one stage kind of thing. Like Ashutosh mentioned, this is one for large businesses, but these are the questions you need to keep constantly asking yourself. Whether you're a large business, whether you're a small business, does not matter. But do you have a tool that enables you to think through a structured fashions about certain questions?
right.
Anything else about your respective businesses? You have something to ask, you can feel free to. We have time on our hands.
Okay. So actually, we are doing so we are developing a coaching platform.
Okay.
So what would be our outcome? Actually, we can. What will be the story of the outcome we can tell it to the customer.
Coaching is for what?
It's for leadership coaching, business coaching.
Okay, it's a platform business. Is it a what's a B2B, B2C platform?
It's actually both as B2B and also the B2C.
No, is it a platform that you're creating, or where you are enabling a coach and a mentee to come on a platform where you are a platform owner?
Yes, that's correct.
You are building a platform.
Yes.
That connects people.
Yes.
Okay. So what exactly is the question?
Okay, what will be the outcome we can tell it to the customer as a story?
So you look at any platform, for example, Redbus, the example that Redbus is a platform, right? That
Yes.
gets two sets of people on a platform, B2B and B2C. Now, research on platforms has actually shown that initially people do exactly what Redbus did. They tend to go and knock on B2B, and then they realize B2B is not ready. Then you go and try to onboard B2C customers. And B2B customers are given free. Most of your money actually in such platforms comes not from B2C, from B2B.
Yes.
And then after some time, once you have traction, then you put in a business model where the B2B businesses, they start seeing value in your offering and start paying.
Okay.
So, but yours is, I think, the monetization part is the business model again is straightforward, I guess. But that is something that you may want to think through.
Sure.
And there also you need to, you just think through, because when you say coaching is it's an ocean.
Yes.
From executive coaching to life coaching to entrepreneurship coaching to there are all kinds of coaching, sports coaching, right? Or there,
Yeah.
and your target audiences can be different. Is it the college going kids? Is this career coaching, or is it mentoring? So there's nuances you'll have to see whether you want to focus on a particular audience, a particular segment. There are some people who do only for employment related stuff.
Yes. Correct.
So because that's where the volumes are. So if you're doing that, then your B2B customer is the college.
Yes.
Then
Correct. Yeah, that's correct.
yeah, college would become your customer, and
Yes.
then for coaches, then you'll have to have onboard a set of panelists who can deliver on your coaching.
Correct.
And here,
So
I think something that's critical for your kind of business is the quality of stuff that you actually produce. Quality of
okay.
coaching, and it's yeah.
Okay.
Which
So
may not
actually,
be in your control. Yeah.
yes. So we are going to focus on the 4 categories: the
Yeah.
leadership coaching, business coaching, life coaching, and career coaching.
Okay.
So
Sure.
on the B2B segment, we are going to focus on the corporates and colleges, and the B2C, it's different.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, here, if you just go through the model that we discuss, just step back and see if anything applies to you. For example, supplier. Here again, trust is extremely important. Credibility is important. Trust is of 2 types: credibility trust and benevolent trust. You know, what is the credibility you get to the table? What are the kind of people who are going to? So the first set of people that you onboard, the experience has to be great.
Okay.
So those are the things that How do you enable that? That is something that you want to think through. And anyone
Okay.
else want to ask anything? Yeah.
Yeah,
Anything
I,
that
I invite
triggered you?
everyone to come up with right. Hi teams. Yeah, you can come up with your startup, and we can ask.
Yeah, you can talk about anything. See, like the others have
We'll do
shared, if
discovery for
there's
you
a
guys.
challenge, if you're seeking clarity on something, you can feel free to ask, or if this is something that has triggered you to think on certain lines.
Right. Vijay, would you like to ask questions, sir?
See, what you try to do now is actually a fairly, it's a big module. It's a workshop for at least a couple of days kind of thing, pretty stretched. Each of them is actually a big exercise in itself. So I tried my best to condense it in as much as possible, because knowing well that each one of you is going to take away what is that appeals to you and to your circumstances. What we look for in these sessions is just one small tweak, not solutions. एक जरा सा अलग से देखना है. You need to see something, look at something slightly differently, which can make a lot of difference in the way you look at something. Basically, the idea is to trigger you to think on certain lines. That's the objective as a facilitator.
So SK, are we going to get these slides and the model that Mr. Parthasarthy just presented? I mean, I'm sure in 1.5 hours, we would have just taken at least a bit of it. So just to sit back and understand what all he has said now, and just to chew on the thoughts. It's beneficial if we sit and do things for our business. So with that, we shared.
Seek the first permission. If I seek Mr. Parsat's permission, if he uh, allows to share the presentation, yeah.
Sure. If not the presentation, at least the quadrants and the the cycle of the customer value, the supplier, and those. That would be really beneficial.
Sure, sure. So when you look at customer value, I just wanted to put a context to this. When you talk about customer value, etc., most people would focus on customer value creation. Creating customer value is inwardly focused. You look at your operations, look at processes, look at systems, etc. What we are doing is we are externally focused. We are looking at what is into the customer values, which is at the heart of your business, and which is the first step before when you start creating solutions, you tweak with your solutions. I'm just giving you a perspective because sometimes people get confused between customer value creation and discovery. Discovery precedes creation. Yeah. Okay. So I guess if there are no more questions, then we can wind up. Thanks to all of you. It was a wonderful actually taking this session. I'm not sure if it added value, but my objective is when four of you go away saying, "Hey, there's something interesting that I can probably think through for my own business," I think my job is done because I recognize that I can't do everything for everyone. My objective is to just trigger your thoughts, and if I've done that one for a small subset of all of you, my job is done. Thank you all. Thanks, Saurabh. I think it was wonderful talking to taking the session.
Likewise,
Thank
sir.
you very
Indeed.
much, sir, for
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
taking for
Thank you so much.
Take care.
session on such
Uh,
an important topic.
and it's a
On
huge
behalf of
topic,
everyone.
and yeah, it's a huge topic. So let's see, and all the best in whatever spaces you are in. Wish you well, and hope you do well and achieve your dreams.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Been a
Thank you,
pleasure.
Mr.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Parthasarathy.
much.
It was an insightful session. Thank you
Thank
very
you so
much.
much. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. Bye.
Hi guys. Just a request that please feel free to ask questions, and I think these sessions are a good opportunity to basically relate not only to get the queries also, but also discuss your idea with such experienced people. So definitely they can add one or two point to your business idea. They can reflect on it. So use it as much as possible. Of course, I know this the online sessions are a challenge, and you may sometime got disconnect with the flow of presentation. But I think, in fact, from the very basic of the presentation, the idea itself, you can bring your idea, present your idea, and then ask for his comment on the process. Like for example, the value discovery for your own idea and all. So I think that would make because this online medium is a very challenging for speakers. They wanted to be a responding crowd, which can throw back questions to them. So I think if we can just bring more activity and more engagement with the speakers, that would be really helpful. Sure, because we are now being lined up with many exciting sessions. Go to market study with Dr. Rajiv Rai and Mr. Grant Putnis on investment and fundraising. They are very important topics, even with Mr. Saurabh Mitra also, the organizational design. So these sessions, I request all of you to come up with questions, and yeah, feel free to discuss ideas. Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much for joining the session. As I informed on the WhatsApp, Mrs. Sneha could not take today's session because of the health issues. I will update you about the new timing whenever she gets back to us with whenever she gets time. Yeah. So tomorrow we will have Dr. Rajiv Rai sessions on go-to-market strategy on 11 o'clock. I will again share the link on the group. Anyway, it's on the mail I have sent. Thank you everyone for being on the call.